foreign workers is due to the different expectations of the workers and also the promises by the employment agencies. Will anyone be taking any further steps to better regulate the employment agencies?
I think it's something that we need to look at. I mean, certain things are said. I think we need to verify what are facts, what are allegations, what are perceptions. Clearly, we do know that there are different expectations. For example, with dormitories. We inspect dormitories regularly, especially illegal ones. I mean, these are formal, legalized dormitories. They kept to the numbers expected of their size. So so there is no overcrowding based on specification. But conditions within each bunk, for example, really depends on the occupants. They have to maintain it. External areas are contracted out, but internal to the bunks and accommodations are maintained by individuals. Now, when we talk about whether it's subpar standards, I think we need to look at firstly whether did we force more people into the rooms than is allowed. As far as we understand it, the answer is no. As far as the maintenance of the conditions within the room, we talk about bed bugs and so on. I think we also need to ask ourselves about the level of maintenance that individuals carry out. And this applies to even our own households. So there are different expectations, and I think it's important to take a step back and look at some of these allegations, some of these comments made carefully. And I think as we go forward, I mean, this is not the end of the issue. Clearly, we will have to follow up and understand what are the various concerns highlighted. Is it peculiar? Is it systemic? I think those are things that we will need to look at subsequently.
Perception in some quarters that we have been a little too harsh coming down on these bus drivers and that they were really just fighting for their rights as workers here. And also the broader issue of the treatment of foreign workers in Singapore.
I recognize the perception. Like I said, there are many, there's a range of perspectives on this issue, really on the extreme ends. Many variations on views in the middle band as well. Are there grievances? Clearly so. Real, perceived, otherwise. Some accurate, some less so. Some really is an issue of communications. I mean, there will be many different factors involved. But I think it's important to understand that whatever the concerns may be, there are laws in place, and we can't take the laws into our own hands. And in this instance, the bus drivers cross the line, certainly for those who are being charged and being repatriated. And that cannot be acceptable under any circumstance. And this applies not only to foreigners, but to locals as well. There are rules and regulations in every country that we adhere to. We may not like certain things, we may not be happy, but we will have to operate within the boundaries of the law, and to make sure that those avenues are open and to surface those perspectives. I would say that by and large, employers in Singapore are responsible. They discharge their duties, or at least that's expected of them from a legal basis. Most of them do. Those who violate, as you're aware, I've tightened up a lot of the various EFMA requirements and so on, and we will take action against those who are recalcitrant. But as I mentioned earlier, there are many other practices that are not binding from a statutory perspective. And I think it would be difficult, or I think it doesn't make sense to make some of this statutory, because a lot of this has got to do with management and the way you look after your people. Are we necessarily remiss in the way we look after foreign workers? There will be those who don't manage in a way that we think is befitting of good employers. Have they violated the laws? Not necessarily so. Will there be companies like that? There will be, I think, in any society. But by and large, I would say that Singaporean workers are well treated. We do carry out fairly extensive surveys, questionnaires, getting feedback from foreign workers working here as well. But we do want to promote better employment practices. We want to make sure that good HR practices are in place. And like I said, I think this is a good opportunity to remind all of us that there are responsibilities expected of us, even though we may not be obliged under the law. And I think that's something that all of us, it's a point worth remembering. Perhaps just one more final question.
Given what you just said, why why was the decision taken to then just suddenly want to repatriate the criminal and not charge them or reinforce the strike?
Well, I said in the course of the investigations, you are able to differentiate different degrees of culpability. I think the MHA and the police can follow up with more details hereafter if you wish to pursue that. But we are able to distinguish a few different categories. And like I said, the laws are in place. We will want to be firm, but we want to be fair as well. So we examine it from first principles. On what basis are the laws violated? How are the individuals culpable? What did they do? And you can draw a distinction between the different groups. Hence the different treatment of these different individuals. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Just now you mentioned that the 45 drivers who stand by for employment will be only waiting for 1 week. Why does it need to take that long?
Yes. Well, these drivers, they have Class 4 licenses, which means that they can drive buses. But they still need to be familiar with the routes, and they also need to be familiar with the equipment, because not all buses are identical. So this 1 week is to allow time for the training to take place, and primarily because we want to ensure that they are able to keep up the service level, and also we want to make sure that they know the equipment and the bus routes well, so that they can keep to the safety record that we have for commuters' purposes. They have actually started the training today. They are drivers. Yes, they are drivers. They are experienced drivers. They hold licenses. And those who are on loan from the SBS Transit, they're actually on the road most of the time. Yeah. As for those who are on from the private transport operators, they are also on the road, but perhaps they could be driving tour coaches or school buses.
Sorry, if I may ask you for transport. I mean, as MOS for transport, are you concerned about SMRT as a company? Because this comes from some breakdowns,
Well, in the same way that Acting Minister Chuan Jun has talked about, the management itself acknowledges that there are many areas that they need to look into. And certainly MOT, as well as the LTA, expects the operator to take a very serious view of their human resource issues, their maintenance issues, across the board, all areas that they need to step up in order to continue to provide a high level of service to commuters. We expect them to carry out. So there's no question that on the part of SMRT, they have to take it seriously and they have to follow through. And we will be in close contact with them to understand exactly what steps they are taking. And I would say that we expect them to reassure us that they continue to be able to provide a high level of service to commuters.